Good morning. Good morning. Hopefully, you are doing just fabulous today. I'm not really sure why I said that. Wanted to take a second and talk about I have an updated review of my Radiant Health E-2H, which is a 15 amp two-person far infrared sauna that I've owned for 3 years now. I was looking through some old footage. I am catching a flight to go spread my grandfather's ashes, and I was looking for some old stuff to do like a remembrance piece for him. And I happened to come across some of these. I've had a Radiant Health two-person sauna since January of 2019, which is when I ordered it. And so what I'd like to do is do a like really updated review where I take you inside, show you how I use it, show you exactly the temperatures, how I preheat it, how I cleaned it, basically everything that I've kind of like gotten used to over the last couple of years that's commonplace to me, that's probably useful to other people, but really isn't condensed into like an updated review. But in today's video, I realize that not everybody has 20 or 25 minutes to sit through like an updated review of what I think about the sauna after owning it for 3 years. So I want to touch on a few points that I think are absolutely critical if you're looking for a two-person sauna. We're going to talk about a few things like comparing models, listening to salespeople from certain companies, full spectrum versus far infrared, emissivity, micron range, things like that. I just want to take 3 to 5 minutes and talk about each one of those really quick, make it really easily digestible for you so that if you don't have a lot of time, you can just consume this and then come back later. Because the video where I go inside with you and somebody's filming me and things like that, that's going to be really long. It'll be 20 or 30 minutes. So, and the other thing that I did not realize that I've had the two-person sauna for 3 years. And some people might be wondering, well, you show yourself using the corner sauna, which is also a Radiant Health sauna. Why do you have two of them, not in the office like the models behind me, but like in actual residences? Well, when I first got the two-person sauna, I decided to order another one because I liked it so much. And I was also traveling back and forth to Maine. This was before my grandfather passed away, and I wanted a sauna so I can continue to do my detox protocols and work on my health and things like that. And I wanted kind of like the same thing in both places so that it didn't matter where I was. And so that's why I chose to go ahead and keep it and also get a bigger one or another one. And then, after that kind of came to a close, now they're useful no matter where you are. They're kind of all in one place at this point in time, but that could change in the near future. Anyway, let's stay on the two-person sauna. I purchased this in January of 2019. It's still one of the best two-person saunas in my opinion. If you're looking for, a 10 to 15 amp household outlet infrared sauna for your house. Obviously, it's an indoor model. You can't place it outside. I don't know why people keep asking that. People have crazy questions like, can I put it outside and just put a cover on it? Absolutely not. You're going to get rain splash up. There's going to be a little seam at the bottom. Even if you buy a really expensive cover that's $1,000, you're going to get moisture in there. It's going to deteriorate the sauna. It's not going to last. These are indoor saunas. They're not meant for outdoor use. Not to mention they do not have a roof. Excuse me. So if you did have some type of rain penetration or anything like that, that's going to go straight into the walls, right into the electronics. It's just not a good fit. But the best thing about the Radiant Health E-2H is it works without upgrading your home's electrical system. It is a two-person, like two adults can actually sit in there. So it's not one of those ones where they call it a 1 to 2 person and it's really narrow and you'd be hard pressed to ever get a second person in there, maybe a child or something, but probably not. It's kind of just a sales gimmick on saying, hey, it's 30 something inches wide when a broad-shouldered person is like 24 or 20 something. There's not enough room to sit shoulder to shoulder with another adult. The other thing that is great about all the Radiant Health saunas is there's a lot of saunas behind me. I mean, I don't want to make this a brand comparison and talk about other specific brands and how they make things more complicated. But the Radiant Health saunas, all of them, it doesn't matter which one it is, are still the easiest saunas to put together on the entire market. So of any of the saunas that I have disassembled and moved, the Radiant Health sauna has been by far the easiest to put back together, to travel with, all those things. And if you followed my work for any length of time, you already know that the Radiant Health saunas are the lowest EMF of any far infrared wooden sauna anywhere. Doesn't matter the brand, doesn't matter the model, all of them. And this is consistent between Radiant Health models as well. It's not just the two-person. If you're looking for something else, sometimes people email in and say, hey, is the one person, any higher EMF because, you sit closer to the heaters and it's a smaller cabin and things like that. No, they've done the same great job mitigating ELF and EMF And there's no Bluetooth or Wi-Fi modules in there, so there's no RF in these saunas at all. In fact, their one-person sauna tests just as well as the two-person. So low EMF across the board, lowest VOCs of any of the infrared saunas also, and they're not doing the gimmicky thing. They're not doing the thing where you take the bottle of air canister and capture air from the cabin of the sauna and then send it to a lab and then show you a pretty report and say, hey, it's low VOC. Yet there are things glued to the back of the heater guard that no one is talking about in other brands. I mean, not in the Radiant Health saunas. There is a child safety guard in the Radiant Health saunas, just to prevent, kids from touching the hot spots on the heaters and things like that. Doesn't block the far infrared. Other companies will say that they're using that to shield the ELF or to mitigate the electric fields. That's not the case. I have in the in-depth video, you'll see me take a heater apart, remove the child safety guard from the front altogether, and the electric fields do not change. So that is not accurate, but a lot of people like to say that. They also say that it blocks the infrared. This is really interesting to me, and this is something that you should probably know. Child safety guard in the Radiant Health saunas does not block any infrared. And the reason that we know this is because when customers are doing detox protocols, or when they're using them at the detox center where there's a rotation of individuals doing group detoxes, what are we doing? We are lining the entire sauna. We are draping towels over the backrest on the back of the sauna, like thick Egyptian, towels, so that we're not picking up contaminants from the person before, and we're not leaving things behind for the person right after, because the sauna just continues to run. There's no gap in between. I mean, we might clean it, wipe it down real quick for 5 minutes and then air it out, but the next person is going right back in. And so, or they're using them together, like there's multiple people in there. So if there was ever anything that was going to block infrared, it would be that. And these people are sweating more than ever. They're completing the detox protocol successfully. Like the amount of little things that other companies come up with, it's kind of like the emissivity thing in the Micron range, which we'll talk about in a second. There are actually, we'll just go into that right now. Other sauna companies will say, they have a higher emissivity heater, or they have a heater. Their infrared saunas have like a specific micron range that they output infrared at, which is more beneficial or more biologically acceptable to the body. It's almost like talking about the 7 point, whatever Schumann resonance frequency and how that's more harmonious to the system and yada, yada. Here's the thing that no one is talking about. And the reason, as soon as these people start speaking like this, I know that the owners of the sauna companies haven't educated them properly, because here's the thing about micron range from an infrared heating element. In order for you to have a specific micron range of output, that means the temperature has to be that exact temperature the entire time. Micron range changes with temperature. So if you have an infrared emitter that only outputs a specific micron range, you're also saying it only has a specific temperature, either a surface temperature or an output temperature or whatever. It doesn't matter how you're classifying it or measuring it, which is obviously not true. Saunas have to preheat. They're never the same temperature. They're either heating up or cooling down, right? Like it just doesn't make any sense, but it sounds good. It ropes you in. It ropes you in to get you away from the basics. The basics are far infrared is the real workhorse of any sauna. One of the reasons that Radiant Health is at the top of my list still 3 years later is because they focus on far infrared wooden cabin saunas that have low ELF, low EMF, low VOC. They don't have a ton of glass, so they're more insulative and they hold the heat better. These saunas that have all glass fronts and things like that, you're constantly fighting. They're having to come up with ways to make them hotter so that you don't have cold and heat on one side, which I want to talk to you about that. This will make it a little bit longer, but in just a second, I want to talk to you about the power and why it's so critical to focus on far infrared and not a full spectrum sauna when you're talking about a 15 amp unit, especially. And you might be shooting yourself in the foot if you are looking at a fancy sauna and you're going for a feature that may or may not be conducive to what you're really trying to do in your health goals. It probably doesn't have the benefit that you think it does. So just to wrap emissivity up, these guys that are saying, Radiant Health saunas have a heater that or this brand has a heater that has this micron range, or this brand over here does this and this and this. If they're talking about the heating elements themselves in a particular range like that, just understand that micron ranges change with temperature. So unless a particular sauna, has an output of whatever degrees, and it's going to be like that from the time you turn it on till the time you turn it off, just know that the micron range is not static. It's a fluctuating thing. So when somebody ropes you in and makes you think, oh, this heater is going to have more beneficial waves for my body because it's at this micron range, that's not true. It's only at that micron range for this amount of time. And the radiant health saunas do that too. They're just not lying to you and using that as a benefit to try to shove you into buying their stuff instead of somebody else's. Now, this is not the fault of the other sauna companies. It's the sales agents, trying to be persuasive, trying to meet quotas and doing things like that. Another reason why Radiant Health Saunas is still at the top of the list is because they don't do that. They're not pushy. They're a small sales force. They don't have a big call center. If it's not for you and it's not the sauna you want, they're not going to call you and hound you and try to force you to buy like other sauna companies. They're not pushy, and they're not going to, use those false tactics to try to like rope you in. They're very, very nice. A lot of people are hesitant to call. You kind of have to call. Every sauna company you're going to have to call because the shipping is not the same. If you're in Florida or you're in Washington or you're in Texas versus Maine or in the middle of the US or wherever, Canada, wherever you are, the shipping cost isn't going to be the same, unfortunately. So in order to get an accurate quote and a timeline, because that's not going to be the same either. Some people might have it in a week to 12 days. Other people, it might be, 3 weeks to 30 days. It just depends. But don't be afraid to call Radiant. They're the nicest people, won't hound you. They're not going to sell your information or do anything crazy. Or have a sales force beat you up later and, hey, hey, John, why haven't you bought that sauna yet? It's really the best thing on the market. They don't do any of that stuff, which is another thing that keeps them at the top of the list, because as a customer, when you're trying to find the right sauna for your house, the last thing that you want to deal with is some nonsense like that. And there's a lot of sauna companies that do it. Radiant Health is not one of them. So let's wrap this up. After 3 years of, actually, no, the power supply. Okay, so one of the things that I want to talk to you guys about, and I need to make a separate video on this. Maybe I'll do it right now after this one. When you're shopping for a sauna and you know that you're not going to be able to upgrade the electrical in your home and you're going to want a sauna that works on a 10 or 15 amp outlet, understand that the max power available from that circuit is about 1800 watts. And in order to get a UL stamp, or generally electricians or electrical engineers would advise only using 80 to 90% of the available power on tap. So what does that mean? I'm going to break this down for you guys. And I really want you to understand this. This is one of the most important things for you to understand when you're thinking about using a sauna. When you're thinking about selecting a sauna with this particular type of power requirement. Unless you're going to hire an electrician to put in a new circuit, run new lines to wherever you're going to install the sauna and do all this stuff. This is very, very, very important, because this determines how the sauna performs. This determines whether or not it has enough power to get hot when it's cooler out. This determines whether or not you're paying for gimmicky stuff that's really not contributing to raising your core temperature, giving you the sweat, giving you the detox, giving you the benefits that we all want from using an infrared sauna. So here it is. It's very simple. That 1800 watts that I told you that's available on the 15 amp circuit, you're only going to want to use about 1700 of that. And so if a 2-person or 1-person or whatever sauna has a power supply in it that's capable of consuming 1600, 1800 watts, that is set in stone. Right? So there's only 1800 watts available on the 15 amp circuit. There's a power supply that can only consume what's available on the electrical circuit without upgrading it, correct? And it's not some simple thing where you just put in a new outlet or put in a new breaker. You have to run a new line with the right gauge wire to support more power than that. Not the point. I just want you, there's guys out there making videos saying, use a 20 amp sauna with a little 15 amp adapter plug and put that on there. Do not do that. When you're doing that, you're over extending a circuit with thinner gauge wire in the walls than that should be required. And you can heat those up and they can melt and cause and start a fire. I've seen this firsthand. I've melted breakers myself and started to catch wires on fire myself. I have pictures and videos of this. I can show it to you. Please don't take that advice. Okay. You've got the power supply in a sauna that consumes about what's available on the circuit. When you have a far infrared sauna, I'm going to use even numbers to make the math easier. Let's say you have 8 heaters in the sauna, and each one of those heaters is a 200 watt heater that can consume a maximum of 1600 watts. This is not how they lay them out. Usually they're segregated, like the calf or the leg heaters will be less than 200 watts. The heaters behind your back and on the sides will be more, like 300 or 400. So, but just to make the math easy for you to understand. So we have 8 heaters that are 200 watts, consuming a total of 1600 watts. There's another 100 watts that powers like the lights and the control panel. And this is how the power is allocated in the supply, right? The power supply. When you have companies coming out with fancy full spectrum saunas, they have features like different types of colored light therapy, or they're adding near infrared panels, or they're adding full spectrum heaters, or they're adding things that are high wattage, right? If you take a far infrared sauna that has 8 far infrared black carbon panels throughout the sauna, I'm just saying that so you know what they look like, or you understand where they're placed. And then you add a near infrared device that's 100, 200, 300 watts, or you add full spectrum heater that's 250 to 350 watts. Where do you think this power is coming from? The circuit didn't grow in your house. The power supply in the sauna didn't get any bigger, right? And so I want you to understand the gravity of this, because if you're adding a full spectrum heater, if you're adding a near infrared device or anything like that, that consumes, 200 to 400, 300 watts, anything like that, you better take that 1600 watts for the 8 heaters and subtract 300 watts from that, because the power is coming from somewhere. And it's not because you hire an electrician to make more available power on that particular circuit. It's not because you switched out the power supply and upgraded that sauna to a bigger one, because you can't do that on a smaller circuit. There's not enough available power to run it. It'll trip the breaker and it won't work. So what's happening? The far infrared output is suffering when this happens. And so people are using these gimmicks. They're using these things like, the sauna connects to Wi-Fi, or you can control it from here. Oh, it has an iPad in it. Or, oh, it has a fancy LCD screen and it has modes, and there's all these LEDs for near infrared therapy and all this stuff. Guys, it's not that those things are bad. If that's what you want, hey, buy it. But if you're really looking to focus on far infrared, which is the real workhorse in any sauna, I've been saying it for years now, you want to make sure that you, as a baseline, you want to make sure that you have an adequate amount of that to increase your core temperature, and it doesn't take forever. Some of these other saunas on the market, they're taking an hour to heat up to like 130. That is ridiculous. That's not normal, right? Like there's power. I don't want to say power being wasted, because this is how these things have been designed. They're designed to be fancy. They're designed to do this. Unfortunately, when you get some of the sauna salespeople will say you need all 3 wavelengths to have a complete detox. You need far infrared, mid infrared, and near infrared. Well, unfortunately, like you've seen in a lot of my videos, near infrared is not contributing to increasing your core temperature at all. There's a reason that I have that on in this video, so that I can see it in the background. And it's a reminder for me to tell you that I can stand in front of that thing for 2 hours and I'll never break a sweat. Near infrared does not heat you up. So this idea that you have to have full spectrum, or you have to add chromotherapy, or you have to add red light therapy, or you have to do this in your sauna in order to get all the health benefits or to get a complete detox is nonsense. Please understand what is happening. Enough harping on that. I just want you to know that when you have a fancy sauna that has accessories in it, or you have things that you can, different modes with it, because a lot of them have fancy LCD screens, and there's new saunas coming out on the market that are going to be proponents of this. There's going to be an iPad in it, or it has a fancy brain, or whatever you call it, and you can run particular modes that will cycle the far infrared, the near infrared, and all this stuff. That's not really in your best interest. You want to make sure that the far infrared is having output the entire time, because that is what's heating your body up. So if you have something that's going through a cycle and there's a gap in far infrared emissions, there's also a gap in your hyperthermia treatment. There's a gap in your sweat. It just doesn't make any sense on a fundamental level. So as a baseline, just understand, if you have high powered accessories that go into a sauna, and you're limited to, whatever circuit you're operating from in your household, and you can't have an electrician trench around your home and put in new lines and things like that, that power is coming from somewhere. So don't let anybody talk you into borrowing power from far infrared, the far infrared system, in order to get something else that's most likely not contributing to your sweat. You'd be better off not paying an extra $2,500 to $3,500 for one of those fancier units, sticking with something that it really focuses on the core benefit, and getting a light panel like I hung up right there to remind me to talk to you about this. So enough harping. After 3 years of owning the Radiant Health E-2H, what I like most is obviously, number one, the most important thing is that it never breaks. I've never had a single issue with it at all. A lot of companies put out videos on how to replace their control panels. A lot of people put out videos on how to replace a heater. Maybe I'll have to do that one day, but I've never had to replace anything. It's simple to use. It's rock solid. It's been bulletproof for me. The other thing that I really like is I've moved my 2-person sauna to 2 separate households altogether. And so it's very, very, very easy to disassemble and move. There's none of that nonsense where you have to, like a lot of sauna companies, the door hinges are an issue. Adjusting them and lining that up is definitely a problem. It's a pain in the neck to get the glass, on right and everything fitted. You have to sit there and finagle it. The thing that I like about Radiant Health Saunas is every single model, not just the 2-person model, the glass door and all the windows are set in that particular wall frame, and there is no adjustment. And so you don't have to fool with that. It's done from the factory. They install in once you get used to it, for me, they install in 15 minutes. I mean, it's the fastest sauna to put together, easiest to disassemble. I've got videos that show you how to put it in a moving truck. Basically, what you want to do is stand the sidewalls up on edge, and you want to use an edge that's concealed that either fits into the base or whatever. So if you do ding it up or whatever, if you're not careful or you make a mistake, you won't even see it. But basically, if this is the sidewall of the moving truck, you want to line each panel up on edge, put a moving blanket in between each one, and then just take a ratchet strap and gently cinch them together. That way, if you hit a speed bump or something like that, they're not falling all over the place. And you want to put the glass door or you want to put the windows in the middle. You want to slide them in between two pieces, double up on that wrap. Super simple to move. I've moved them a bunch of times, haven't broken anything. Everything still works just as it did before. It's held up awesome. No cracking, no warping, no issues with the door hinges, like I said, from other brands. It's just like the day I bought it. Some of that is how I line the sauna, with towels and things like that, which I can show you in another video. But if you're considering a 2-person sauna, I would highly, highly, highly recommend that you take a look at the Radiant Health E-2H model. They should be shipping and under normal shipping circumstances. Again, in the last 2 years, we've had all kinds of shipping delays, price increases from every single brand. Things should start to get back to normal. I don't know about the pricing, but as far as the delays and the distribution issues, that should start to get better and better now. So I would highly encourage you to check out one of those. If that's not for you, and by no means is this to force you into buying a Radiant Health. If that's not for you and you want something else, hey, get whatever's right for you. You can always check out the certified sauna list to see other companies that I promote. But I would highly recommend, purchasing a Radiant Health E-2H if you're looking for a 2-person sauna and you really want the benefits of far infrared. I would buy it again. I've had several friends and family members that I've recommended it to. Every single one, no issues, just like mine, just like the day we bought it. So if you have any questions, throw them in the YouTube comments below, and have a great day.